Hello, guys. It's Colby Evans, starting Park here. Welcome to another episode of the ARCA Racing podcast. It's good to see you guys again after a long week away. We've got a fun show for you guys today. We're going to go over Kansas, obviously. I was there in person, so we're going to have a lot more stuff to really talk about. We got the East and Main Series combo race. Not this weekend, literally tomorrow night at Bristol, so it's going to be kind of a quick preview show because we literally have the race tomorrow, not this like Saturday or Sunday. And we also have some 2023 parts of the schedule announced. Obviously, with the NASCAR schedules coming out today, a lot of the combination weekends that ARCA does have with the NASCAR circuit have been announced. So we will go over all that as well and much more. And I thank you guys for joining in. You guys know the simple drill. Follow me on social media at Startin' Park Car. Like and subscribe to the channel. We're only 36 away from our 500 subscriber giveaway. So if you guys could please like and subscribe, I would very, very much appreciate that because I want to give back to my fellow subscribers. And, of course, check out Brockbeard, check out NASCAR Man, and check out theracingexperts.com for all NASCAR content. Those guys are all my friends, and they make a lot of this very well possible. Whew. So now that little intro is over, let's get right into the show, you guys. So what did we have this weekend? We had Kansas. One of the tracks, you can call me biased what you want, but I really feel like this has always been one of the better tracks for the ARCA schedule. The drafting package at this track works very good. My biggest complaint about the track is just the lack of cars. At a track like this, obviously you need a pretty decent car count to be able to put on a good race. And I've been pretty critical about that ever since I started this show. Like when I did my review for the 2021 spring race and last year's fall race and even this year's spring race, the last three, I've been critical that we've had good racing for the first part. But once, the run gets going, the field spreads out a little bit. It's kind of gets to the point where we're just kind of running laps. You don't see the leaders closing on each other. The really only battles in the field is from about, 5th place to about 10th. And even then they get kind of spread out. And that's just, it's a natural case of happening when these types of cars, get more laps on them, because it really comes down to who has the better setup and handling, if that makes sense to you guys. And, even being there in person, you could just tell. You could really tell, coming down the front straightaway and going into turn one, what cars were handling good at the start, and then what cars would start to fall off as the run went on, because they would progressively, judging by lap times, would get slower and slower than some of the other cars who were also losing time as well. So, yeah, coming into Kansas, we actually had a pretty stellar car count compared to what we usually have. Last year's car count was one of the biggest ones we had. Last year's fall race had 23. This year only had 21. But yeah, coming into practice, obviously, I was doing the, media representation gig. I was not with Brad Smith Motorsports this weekend, like I wished I would have been. But obviously, the opportunity with the racingexperts.com to do my first media gig, too hard to pass up. So I went ahead and did that instead. Still went out and checked out the ARCA garage area like I normally do. Went over and talked to Brad Smith. And, I asked them, are they going to run the whole thing tonight? And they told me that they were at least going to try. Obviously, with a team like that, with Brad, you never, even if they say they're going the distance, you never know what could happen during the race to obviously affect that. But the plan was to go the distance. Went over and talked to some friends at Fast Track Racing. Went over and talked to, Alex Clubb, talked to, my friends over at Peterson, pretty much all my usual friends, talked to them. And it was just kind of cool to get some news and notes like usual. But I'm not going to lie, it was kind of weird not standing there in tech with my fellow ARCA crew guys and, having a good time with everyone else. I did low-key miss it. I'm not going to deny the fact that I did miss it a lot. Despite the new opportunity, despite having fun at that new opportunity doing the media gig, I still very much enjoy being around my fellow ARCA friends and doing the crewman gig. It's definitely a lot more fun. And that's not to say that the other gig isn't fun, but I think, and a lot of people would say is working around race cars is just so awesome. And it's hard to get away from that when you've been trying to do that in my case, about last 3 years. So yeah, we had 21 cars. Obviously, this was planned to be originally just a one-day show like usual. So I got everyone set up. The practice results, all 21 cars did take a practice time. The slowest being Alex Club. The slowest being Alex Club. He, of course, they literally did the build a car in 4-day challenge. Start and parked DuQuoin, which was probably the smartest thing that they could have done because they couldn't risk a torn-up car. Corey Heim led practice. I mean, Corey Heim, without a doubt, had the fastest car in the spring race. And if he hadn't gotten taken out by Drew Dollar, there's no way he would have lost that race. And the same thing this weekend was the same. Corey Heim led practice pretty handedly. Sammy Smith was down in fourth, which was a little bit surprising. I figured, especially with him competing in the Xfinity race, that he would have had definitely a lot more speed. Sanchez was second. Caruth was third. That was a little bit of a surprise considering I didn't think Caruth would really show that much speed on the 1.5-mile tracks, but they've really tried to keep up their speed, and he's up there. And Daniel Dye was down in fifth. So like usual, the top three championship contenders, they're not necessarily running for the win every week, but man, they are just right there together. Like they are either third through fifth or like fourth through sixth. They are always together. It just shows you how even those cars are and how, after this race, it really shows you just how it really is down to a 2-horse race now. And unfortunately, we'll get into it a little bit later, but Caruth's chances at a championship are almost pretty much done after today. And obviously we'll get to that a little bit later in the review. But yeah, so that was practice results. Going into qualifying, I did notice in the garage area there was a lot of work being done on the 7 of Matt Wilson. The rear tire was off, a lot of parts and pieces on the ground. I don't know if it was an axle or a hub, but a lot of work was being done in the rear of the car. A lot of work was being done, and I was hoping that they could get it done. Obviously I enjoy seeing Eric at the track, and I wanted to make sure that they could get that car done because, Matt hasn't made a lot of starts, and that they were supposed to run the spring race here, but unfortunately withdrew. So I wanted to see them definitely run as many laps as possible this weekend as well. So they went ahead and sat out qualifying. They're probably not going to start any better than probably 14th or 15th anyway. So it wasn't a huge loss for them anyway. Obviously, again, Corey Heim, just unbeatable. That car was just set up so perfectly. Daniel Dye surprisingly got up to second. Nick Sanchez was third. Sammy was fourth, and Raj was fifth. Cody Coughlin was down in sixth. Ron Vandermeer Jr. was seventh. We'll get to him in a second. That was a little bit of a sad story. Parker Chase was eighth. Christian Rose was ninth, and Amber Balkin was 10th. Bringing up the rear was Brad Smith. Now, a lot of people make jokes about our lap time. Yes, a 46.731, 115 miles per hour. Brad in practice was struggling with a misfire. They couldn't quite figure out what it was. The car sounded horrible. I legit thought we were about to have a repeat of last year where the engine blew up in practice, and I'm like, please don't happen to these guys again. Luckily, they got that issue fixed. Brad was running pretty decent lap times in the race itself for going on the same set of tires. But yeah, for a lot of people that joke about that lap time, and had a lot of people ask me what happened, it was an engine misfire issue on the 48, but it was later fixed. The 03 of Alex Club was not sure why he was that slow, and it even showed during the race. That car, it's not 100%. Looks like it's not 100% still ready to go, as Alex was very off the pace. But, obviously that's unlike that team. They're just really struggling with that other car, trying to get ready and trying to finish out this season. Kevin Hinkle, who returns with Peterson Motorsports, they showed good speed. Talked to crew chief Nate Moeller. They were actually planning on going the whole distance, which that was great to see. Zachary Tinkle, 16th, and of course, John Garrett, the last driver remaining out in the top 15. So, obviously, you guys remember how Saturday went. The rain was coming. Everybody at the track just wanted to get everything started. Nobody wanted to come back Sunday. Trust me. Every single person I talked to in that garage area was like, we do not want to come back Sunday. So they rushed up the Xfinity time. And the plan was to literally, the moment that checkered flag ended, get the Xfinity equipment out to pit road, get the ARCA cars out to pit road, and let's get this thing underway. Unfortunately, we didn't even have time to do that. 93 laps into the Xfinity race, the rain came and it stayed. It stayed literally for the rest of the day. And unfortunately, ARCA officials had no choice but to postpone the race for 9 a.m. on Sunday, which unfortunately was a big heartbreaker for Ron Vandermeer Jr. He had promised, I believe it was his daughter. That he would be there on her birthday. And, obviously you can't break a promise like that. So unfortunately, man, 7th place qualifier had to load up. And, man, that's just so heartbreaking because 7th place qualifier with all the attrition that happened in that race, Ron Vandermeer Jr. easily would have had a top 5 finish. And I think that's what hurts the most. Easily would have had a top 5 finish. But, they'll be back. They'll be back this weekend, I think, at Bristol. But they'll be back at Kansas next year for sure. So unfortunately, that took us down to 20 cars. For the start of the race. Obviously, not what you want. You don't want to lose a full race car, especially when it's competitive. I got to the track around 8 o'clock. I didn't even realize what time the garage opened. The garage opened up at 6. I didn't even get there till 8. If I would have known it was opened up at 6, I would have gotten there earlier. But literally when I had gotten there, they had already pushed all the cars out to the grid, and almost everybody had already set up all their equipment. So might as well hang out at the grid. And, again, hung out with the Brad Smith guys and, again, stood next to them in the line. They fired up the engines, said good luck to all my friends, and just went ahead and watched the race from the 48 pit stall anyway. And, from the start of the race, I don't know how you guys call this, for the people who did watch the race. But the 20, it looked like just jumped. Either the 20 got a great launch or Corey Heim jumped every restart. That first start looked very questionable, and the 20 just got a huge lead going into 1 as the 18 and the 2, again, were side by side. Came around for the first lap. The 20 already had a pretty decent-sized lead with Sanchez in second. Smith was up to 4th, and Caruth was up to 5th. And, they were just kind of feeling everything out. The first couple laps, nobody was really pushing it. Everybody had gotten single file. From my philosophy, I think it was just a lot of the field was trying to adjust to the new track first. Because, these cars were set up to run at night. And, I'm sure it's easy common race knowledge. But, going from a 1.5-mile track like Kansas, a night race versus an early morning race, you're going to be on 2 different kinds of racetracks. At night, the track will have a crap load of grip, and it'll be very fast. And Sunday morning, track will still be fast, but very slippery. So I think from what I was seeing on track, a lot of the people were just taking it very, very calmly, very, very easily, and were not trying to push it so hard right out of the gate. And then when they found their groove, they found their rhythm on this different type of a track, they said, okay, let's go. Obviously, the first 25 laps, we were going to have our first comp yellow, and then our next comp yellow, we're going to be at lap 55. Again, so Corey Heim was leading. Not much was changing up front. Documented our starting parks. Zachary Tinkle pulled off after 9 laps, and our other starting park, Tim Monroe, who was driving an awesome font. I don't know if you guys saw that on my Twitter, but driving a badass font, number 12 car. They were our starting park, so they pulled off. Alex Clubb, who was very off the pace. Unfortunately, by the time the lap 25 competition caution had come up, they had ruptured an oil line, so he had pulled off as well. Again, it's been a rough go with that new car, and I hope that they can get it fixed this weekend at Bristol. But yeah, in that 25 laps, we didn't have, like I said, much action going on. The 20 just got out to a huge lead. The 2 of Sanchez could close to about 2 seconds, but relatively the gap just kind of stabilized at 2 seconds. 3rd through 5th was highly contested between, Dye, Smith, and Caruth. And then you kind of had Parker Chase, Cody Coughlin, and Christian Rose kind of all running together from about like 6th to 8th. And then you had the ladies of Amber and Tony. They were kind of running with each other. And then you had Wilson, Garrett, Melton. And then you had Hinkle and Smith, stragglers. That's kind of how the field was going by every lap. So, yeah, we got up to the lap 25 competition caution. Free pass was Greg Van Alst. I believe we still had about 15, 16 cars on the lead lap. So by that point, they took a long time under caution because it was during that caution where the 0-3 of Club actually laid down all that oil. He came past our pit stall just extremely slow. Car was already shut off. And, yeah, just an unfortunate break. He worked so hard. And, the car nightmare was killed at Milwaukee. And he's, like I said, they're trying to get that second car ready. It's just obviously they have a lot more bugs to work out. And I hope they can get that car up to speed for Bristol because if, with all due respect, if they show the same speed that they had at Kansas at Bristol, they will not be lasting very many laps at Bristol because they will get either wrecked or they will get parked for going too slow. And I do not want to see that happen to them. I do not want to see that happen to them. But at a track like Bristol, you need a car that's at least quick enough to be able to keep out of the way. And not, and I don't want to see them get wrecked either. Because if that second car gets wrecked, that's pretty much it for them. So yeah, we came back from that long yellow lap 35. Only got an extra 5 laps in before we really had our first incident of the race. It was during that incident where the 6 of Raja Caruth, kind of just like Iowa. I don't know what happened, whether he ran over a piece of debris, but the 6 of Raja Caruth had to come down and make a green flag pit stop. And, with these ARCA teams, that we don't have professional, 12-second pit stops that we're used to seeing with the old tires. These are modified pit stops. So these pit crews aren't, the usual, 13-second machines. These guys will get a pit stop done. Let's see, a 4-tire pit stop done if they were really trying, probably about 16 seconds, 17 seconds. So they had to quickly get a right side tire changed. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was flat. Maybe it was loose. But either way, that put Caruth a lap down. And again, it's just kind of been his luck. Ever since Iowa, Caruth really just hasn't had the same luck we're used to seeing out of him. He's had some decent runs, but it's really been since Iowa that I feel like that he hasn't been bad at all, but it's not like he's been stellar. And especially with Sanchez and Dye catching up a lot as well. And then a couple laps later, we had our real only incident of the race, crash. I didn't see what happened. I was just watching the front stretch cars go by, and then all of a sudden I see the caution. I turn around to look at the big screens that they have up at the track, and the 7 of Matt Wilson and the 35 of Greg Van Alst had made contact on track in turn 2. The 35 of Van Alst was killed on the front nose, lots of damage to that car. And the 7 of Matt Wilson was pretty bent up on all sides of the car, but the car was still drivable, at least. So the 35 was done for the day, but the 7, he was only about 5 stalls down from us, so I could still see what they were going on. The front nose was pretty bent up. The rear of the car was pretty bent up. Car is still easily raceable. I mean, it's not like the car is killed, but the 7 car will need a new nose and probably a new nose, new rear clip, and new door. But the car is still salvageable, and that's the main part because Eric doesn't have a lot of cars in his collection. And that 7 car does hold some sentimental value because it was actually running X pipes. It's the last really stock car that's still running that runs in X pipes. So the car still sounds like a 2009 truck series vehicle. I don't know if you guys understand that reference or not, but for the people who were there, the distinctive sounds that the 7 was making compared to the rest of the field, I love it. I love that car so much. But it was a shame to see that happen to those two guys as, we lost. Even though the 35 wasn't a winning car, it was still a top 10 speed car, and it sucked to lose another competitive car because it kind of, again, when you lose the competitive cars, it hurts the flow of the race, in my opinion. So by this point, we are down to just 16 cars left on track. They got this caution cleaned up pretty quickly. The free pass was Ryan Huff. We went back to green on lap 47, just a quick 8-lap run until the second comp yellow. By this point, the 6 of Caruth was still a lap down, so they were obviously this was kind of their catbird seat to get the free pass at that competition caution. They just had to run a smooth 8 laps, and that's exactly what happened. Again, the same repeat pretty much on all these restarts. The 20 of Heim would take the inside, and even despite the 72 and the 42 staying out on a caution to try to take the lead, it was still no match. The 20 had the lead by the time they took turn 2. There was just no beating Corey Heim, and really impressive speed. And it shows you, the creativity that goes into these Venerini cars, and it really does show true driver talent. I mean, you look at, how Corey Heim drove his car compared to Parker Chase and even compared to Tony Breidinger. Now, obviously, I don't think all 3 of those cars are exactly the same equipment-wise, because, we all know every car will have different equipment in it. But for Heim to be that much faster than Parker Chase throughout the entire weekend and Tony Breidinger, I think really shows just how impressive a driver like Corey Heim is and how much of an asset he will be to the TRD family. And, even though we lost KBM, that's why I thought Corey Heim was going to go next year. I genuinely thought Corey Heim was going to be going to the KBM truck team, but I don't know where Corey Heim goes next year. I don't know what Toyota truck team he could go to. Is he going to? He said he's not going to stay in ARCA, so I don't know where he honestly will go next year. But I hope Corey Heim does find a good ride because the kid really does have a lot of raw talent. So yeah, moving on. Competition caution comes out. Free pass is finally Raja Caruth. Everybody puts on their last set of tires, except for about half the field, because at the first competition caution, a lot of the teams chose not to put on their tires because, well, at the end of the day, it had only been 25 laps, and the general tires that they usually bring to Kansas are more of a hard compound tire. They don't wear out that badly. They will wear, yes, but they won't wear out to the point where after 25 laps you really need to change them. That's not the case. And it showed, even those tires for the leaders ran 55 laps and they were perfectly fine. The lap times didn't even drop off that much. So, props to General Tire as well for bringing good tire, despite the couple of tire failures we had in the race as well. I blame that more on how the teams set up their tire pressures, though, as well. I don't really blame that on General Tire. Very rarely do we see General Tire issues in ARCA races. So, yeah, and by this point, coming to the green on lap 62, we still only had 16 cars left on the track. We would lose another one very quickly after we went back green. The 06 of Kevin Hinkle, they had an oil pump belt come off. Motor is fine. They just lost the oil pump belt. The 06 coasted around. And unfortunately, that's kind of, it goes back to my statement earlier. With only 15 cars left on the track at a 1.5 mile, everything got so spread out and not much happened. And I'm not going to deny it got pretty boring. It did. Because the cars just kept going around and around and around and around. And, I'm not going to deny there were parts of me, that were really just kind of watching the 48 going by. I lost track of how many laps were completed and honestly who was out front at some points. But yeah, eventually, with about 15 laps to go, I caught wind of what was happening. Timing and scoring finally started to work on the ARCA website. And yeah, Heim was leading by about 3 seconds. Again, that's kind of where the gap would stabilize. The 2 would gain a little bit, but there's no way the 2 was going to go run down the 20. Just too much raw speed out of that 20 car. But, and I thought the 20 had it locked up until we had a championship-defining moment of the season. He had hit the wall with about 30 laps to go in the race, and unfortunately, the damage led to a cut tire. The 6 of Raja Caruth hits the wall, and very hard, might I add, and he looked pretty shaken up in that car. And, it really kind of put an end to his championship hopes, in my opinion. Raja is now 28 points out of the picture, and unless the Sanchez has a horrible weekend at Bristol, I don't see really anything happening to get Raja back in the championship hunt. Just a horrible break for him. You know, he really didn't have time to do anything in that Xfinity car yesterday, only running 93 laps, didn't get a chance to really see what he could really do. Finished, I think, 26th in that race. So not a very good weekend for Raja Caruth. And, you can be critical all you want about his season, but I definitely, if you would ask him, it hasn't been the year, especially on the Xfinity side, that he's wanted, because I think he's only finished one of his Xfinity starts this season, and that's got to be disappointing. But like a lot of people, I still have high hopes for this kid, and I want to see him succeed. So, but it looks like in terms of the championship this season, Raja's championship hopes are over. So that caution came out, leading to a 2-lap green flag finish. Everybody decided to pit. I guess since everyone had one set of tires left, you might as well use them. All the competitive cars came down. But we had an interesting situation with the 15 of Parker Chase. I'm not sure if this was shown on TV, but the 15 car came down almost on fire. The left front tire had went down, and fire was coming out of the left side. I looked down the pit road, and they were able to get the tire off, and flames were coming out of the car. Somehow it went out itself. They put the tire back on and sent the 15 right back out there. He limped around, and that's why the 15 finished so low. But then coming to the final restart, again, it's like the 2-car of Sanchez. Just, I don't know why he wasn't up there as far as he was. And the 20 got a big jump, and despite the 2 trying his best, the 18 got beside him, and once that happened, I knew the race was over instantly. And Corey Heim cruised to an easy victory. Ironically enough, I think it's only the 4th win this season for Venturini. Sammy Smith, Joe Gibbs' KBM cars have really kind of dominated this season, along with some other, and Rev. Venturini has not won that many races, so for Venturini, this was a much-needed win for their organization. Nick Sanchez was 2nd. Sammy Smith was 3rd. Daniel Dye was 4th. Ryan Huff with a very impressive top 5 finish for Andy Hillenberg. That was Ryan's own car, by the way. That was not an Andy Hillenberg car. Ryan Huff also gets the Hard Charger Award, extra $500 his way. And Parker Chase was the last car on the lead lap in 6th. Christian Rose, who finally finishes an intermediate race, was 7th. Amber Balkin 8th. Tony Breininger 9th. So good weekend for the ladies. 2 top 10s for them. John Garrett gets 10th. So 2 fast track cars in the top 10. That's always good to see. Scott Melton finishes 11th. Raja Caruth was scored 12th. Brad Smith was scored 13th. Matt Wilson was scored 14th. Cody Coughlin had actually fallen out of the race with 10 laps to go due to a fuel pump issue. He finishes 15th. Kevin Hinkle 16th. Greg Van Al 17th. Alex Clubb 18th. Tim Monroe 19th. And Zachary Tinkle 20th. With Ron Vandermeer Jr. being scored 21st, having not started the race. Overall, the race, guys, my scores are honest. I honestly give this race a 5. Not very good. And I think it's just a case of too many competitive cars lost early. And just Corey Heim being too fast. I guess that's another easy way to say it. It was still okay. I'm not going to call it a bad race, but I'm definitely not going to say it was one of the better races of the season. I'll be honest with that. Our standings coming out. Daniel Dye is 12 points behind Nick Sanchez. And actually it's not 28 points, it's 38 points, which is effectively done for Raja Caruth. So unless absolute carnage happens over this next couple races for Nick Sanchez, I don't see Raja Caruth gaining on him at all. And I think we're now down to a 2-horse race, Nick Sanchez or Daniel Dye. And, based off of speed at the tracks we have coming up, I think Nick Sanchez is without a doubt going to be your champion unless we have something absolutely major happen. Greg Van Alst is still 4th in points. Tony Breidinger is 5th in points. Sammy Smith is 6th in points with 3 races to go. He's only 32 points behind Greg Van Alst, So there is a possibility that in the next 3 races, Sammy Smith could still get up to as high as 4th place in the main Drivers' Championship. Amber Balkin is 7th, Brad Smith is 8th, Zachary Tinkle is 9th, and Taylor Gray is in 10th. The all-important Owners' Championship, obviously with the 20-car winning, they have extended their lead once again. And now that we've gotten down to 3 races to go, the real race has kind of come down to, again, just 2 cars. The Billy Venturini 20 car has a 21-point gap over the Kyle Busch 18 car, and Max Siegel's number 2 car, in my opinion, is too far back, 32 points behind. It is now down to a 2-horse race in the Owners' Championship. As for the top 20 ARCA bonus, Bill Kimmel's 69 car, which is not running this weekend, currently holds that spot with a 10-point lead over the 44 of Jeff McClure, which is running this weekend. So do expect the 44 of McClure's car to retake 20th spot. So yeah, that was Kansas. We had some news midweek. Before we get into our Bristol review, we did some news midweek. Kyle Busch is moving over to Richard Childress Racing. Obviously, that means the KBM truck team will be transferring over to Chevrolet trucks. What does this mean for the KBM ARCA team? Now, I kind of said that, in reality, the only reason why they rebranded the team to Kyle Busch Motorsports was because Joe Gibbs Racing cannot have TMC and FedEx running under the same banner. So to compensate for that, they have Kyle Busch being the owner. Therefore, it's 2 different organizations because the 81 car comes out of the exact same shop that the 18 cars have been coming out of for the ARCA team. So will JGR keep that ARCA team for itself, and will KBM abandon it? We will only see to find out. But it looks like Sammy Smith is heading to the Xfinity Series next year, and I don't know who they would put in that car. And to me, if we lost the 18 car for ARCA, that'd be a pretty huge loss, in my opinion, if we lost the Joe Gibbs Racing car in the ARCA circuit. It really would be. And, of course, we have some 2023 dates for ARCA announced. We have 9 dates announced. So these are the current announced dates that are coming back for the ARCA Series in 2023. The Daytona, of course. The official date has not been announced, but of course will be during Speed Week. Phoenix, that is with the main series. Talladega, Kansas, Michigan, Lucas Oil, Watkins Glen, the Milwaukee Mile, that's with the Truck Series, and of course the second Kansas race. The East Series will have their usual Dover race, and then of course the Phoenix for the West Circuit at the end of the year. So those are the ARCA races that have been announced right now. Obviously, last year, I don't think the ARCA schedules even came out until after the season was over. So I would still say expect quite a long wait until we will see the 2023 ARCA schedules. No Iowa Speedway on the Cup schedule, so fingers crossed that the Iowa Speedway will still be on the ARCA schedule for 2023 as well, because I need races at my home track, man. I do. I need them. But yeah, coming into this weekend, we have Bristol, a very big weekend for ARCA. One of the bigger fields, one of the more anticipated races, and one of the more evened races of the year. And the reason why I call that is Bristol is one of those races where, again, you cannot predict the winner. It's a place where it's not about raw speed. It's about who can really have the best handling car and track position. Of notes, a lot of the cars we have entered. We have the 1 of Jake Finch. That is the own Phoenix Racing team. Mason Diaz is running with Willie Mullins. So right there, you got 2 other competitive cars that are threats to win, Mason Diaz and Jake Finch. Tim Monroe and Zachary Tinkle will be in Andy Hillenberg's cars. The 0-1 will be Stephanie Moyer as she goes for 4th place in the West East Championship, and D.L. Wilson returns in the 12. Parker Chase continues to run in the 15. Taylor Gray's in the 17. Connor Mosack and Brett Holmes Racing return in the 23. Ron Vandermeer Jr., of course, returns in the 44 again. Ashton Higgins returns for the first time since Pensacola in the 49. Andres Perez de Lara, I don't think I pronounced that correctly, but he will be in the 51 for DGR, a second entry by David Gillen Racing. The 55 is back for Venerini with Connor Jones. The Josh Williams team is back with Michael Lira in the 60. Pizza Man Andy Jankowiak is back in the 73. Brandon Jones is back for his fifth and final race of the season in the 81 car for Joe Gibbs. Justin Carroll is back in the 91. He'll also be attempting the truck race. Tanner Arms is back since IRP in the 95. And, of course, Stephanie Moore in the 01. Leland Honeyman in the 02, who will also be running the truck race as well. Alex Clubb in the 03. And AJ Moyer in the 06. So, yeah, very solid 31-car field there. Brad Smith did tell me that he will be going the distance at that race at Bristol. So it looks like the only starting parks that we might see at Bristol will be the 10 of Tim Monroe. And I want to believe the 01 of Moyer because she's parked in almost every race. And maybe the 11. I think Zachary might go the whole distance, though. So I'm not sure about that. We have, again, quite a few championships this weekend. Obviously, we got the main series championship. We went over the points there a little bit ago. But we have the end of the East Championship, and the Sioux Chief Showdown Championship also ends this weekend as well. That is a 10 race that involves a lot of different kinds of tracks, tracks like Phoenix, Iowa, Mid-Ohio, and the dirt tracks. So definitely an interesting championship there. But going over the East schedules, it's really only down to two guys, Sammy Smith and Taylor Gray. They've kind of been the badasses of the East Circuit this season. Leland Honeyman is locked up third position. Stephanie Moyer and Brad Smith will actually, I hope they do run Stephanie the whole race because Brad Smith does intend on running the whole distance at Bristol. And they are currently tied for fourth and fifth in points in the East Circuit. Christian Rose is sixth, Jake Finch is seventh, Jesse Love is eighth, Raja Caruth is ninth, and Donald Teague is 10th. Kyle Busch Motorsports also looks to win their Owners Championship as well. They're going after 2 Owners titles. And as for the East Championship, all Sammy Smith has to do to lock up that championship is finish, I believe, 29th or better. And Taylor Gray, he needs to win the race. And he actually has to finish. If Taylor Gray wins the race, all Sammy Smith has to do is finish 28th or better, not 29th, 28th or better. So, you look at those odds and you look at how many cars could possibly be parking in the race. I think it's safe to say that the East Championship for Taylor Gray just will not happen. I think Sammy Smith's easily going to win the East Championship. As for the Sioux Chief Showdown Championship, that's going to be a little bit more contested. Sammy Smith has a current 26-point lead over Jesse Love. And for that battle, for Love to win the Sioux Chief Showdown Championship, he'll need to finish 4th if Sammy Smith finishes last. And basically, all Sammy Smith has to do is finish 27th or better, no matter what Jesse Love does. So, reality, a big weekend for Sammy Smith and Kyle Busch Motorsports this weekend, as they will not only, I mean, let's face it, unless something absolutely drastic happens to Sammy Smith, which I don't see happening, and I could even see Mark McFarland and that team, maybe even playing it safe this weekend, because, you're not in contention for the Drivers' Championship in the main division. So why don't, you make sure you play it safe to make sure you lock up the other two. But I think it's safe to say that Kyle Busch Motorsports will win the Sioux Chief Showdown Championship and the East Championship and the East Owners Championship this weekend. As for my race pick, I am not going with Sammy Smith as my race pick, even though he did finish second. I believe he did finish second in this race last year. My race pick for this race will actually be Jake Finch. I'm going with Jake Finch to win this race. Bristol's kind of that wild card race, and I'm going to go with Jake Finch as my pick to win. My underdog pick, if I had to pick an underdog pick that I legit think could win, I don't know, man. There's a lot of good choices on here, but I think my underdog pick, let's see here. Who do we got here? I'd go Mason Diaz then. I guess you could say Mason Diaz will be my underdog pick, but I think those will be definitely two guys to watch for sure on track tomorrow. And again, of course, guys, this race will be, I believe it'll be on FS1 tomorrow. We'll go ahead and look at the payouts for this race. Again, a really big field, so the payout list will be extended by quite a bit. So yeah, we'll get the competitor site pulled up here. Again, if you guys want to check out the payout yourself, just simply go to the competitor website on the ARCA page. You guys can find it in the entry blanks page. See again, MRN FS1 live Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So it's a little bit of an early race. Winner's purse is $10,000. Obviously, with all the contingency awards, $19,625 for first, $9,000 for second, and $5,600 for third. Maximum starting field of 35. So luckily, there's only 31. Last place will pay $1,450. And then, of course, let us not forget the Flow Racing prize money bonus of $200 that will go to positions 1st through 20th. So obviously, for a lot of those teams who are competing, around the top 20 area, they will look to try and get into that top 20 because everybody knows, every dollar in the ARCA series counts. And last year's race was pretty decent as well. Ty Gibbs, obviously, coming in. We knew he was pretty much going to be the car to beat in last year's race. Did not lead flag to flag. Thad Moffitt led a couple of the laps, but pretty much did lead flag to flag. Sammy Smith was second. Taylor Gray was third. So that tells you, Smith and Gray. I mean, Gray is going to be right there. Will Taylor Gray dump Sammy Smith to win? We'll find out. Same amount of cars, though. I think another kind of funny thing is, we had the exact same amount of cars that were there last year are here this year. 31 cars with a couple of starting parks, but most of the field will plan on running the whole distance. Last year, 24 cars ended up finishing the entire race. How many cars will finish this year? Again, we'll have to wait and see and find out. But I'm definitely excited for this race. I think it's going to be a lot more contested than last year's race for sure. Last year's race was pretty marred by cautions. We didn't have a lot of green flag runs, long green flag runs. Really only the last one of 32 laps was probably our longest incident of the race. But yeah, we'll just have to see, guys. I'm excited for this race as well. If you guys definitely have time tomorrow, I strongly recommend. Tomorrow's going to be a fun night of racing, with the truck series and, the ARCA series. They usually put on a good show. So if you guys have doing nothing on Thursday and you guys obviously, if you guys can't make the race though, but you follow on social media, like I said, follow my account. I'll be there watching with live race updates. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much the ARCA Racing podcast for this week. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a backmarker battles. Usually I do a backmarker battles tomorrow, but since we are racing tomorrow, I don't think I'll have time. But yeah, so big weekend again this weekend for Sammy Smith. What will Taylor Gray do? What will Jesse Love do? We see them entering in a couple of extra cars. Will the teammates of Taylor Gray and Jesse Love come into play for that 18 car this weekend? We've seen that before when it comes to championships. What will the ARCA schedule look like in 2023? Again, we don't know a lot of those questions right now, but hopefully, by the time next week comes around, we will have those answers and we will be able to answer those questions. But anyway, guys, I'm going to get out of here. You guys enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night. Don't do anything too stupid now that you guys wouldn't normally do. And yeah, we'll catch you all next week with the ARCA Racing podcast. I've been your host, Colby Evans at Start and Park Car. I want to say that with, of course, the past weekend's events at Kansas, I have not been able to really focus on content videos. Obviously, the last one was kind of the Chad Coleman one. But now that that weekend is over, I'm getting started on my latest content video, and I'm sure you guys will like that one as well. And again, we'll catch you all next time. I've been Colby Evans, and I am signing off. So long, guys. Take care now.